Hi everybody, it's Julie. Welcome to Hello Monday. Today I wanted to experiment a little bit with some watercolor and some foiling over the top, and I'm going to be using this Love, which is kind of a handwritten font by Savvy Stamps, and I'm also going to be using Ranger's Distress Stains to do my watercolor work. I'm going to take a quarter sheet of Canson watercolor paper. I already cut it down to size, and I'm going to be working on the smoother side. And I'm also going to use the 3M tape, neutralize that against my hand a couple times, and use that to anchor down my watercolor paper. And this is just going to help keep it nice and flat while I'm working. So I'll get this tape applied all the way around to a clipboard here, and then I'm going to take some fresh water and make a puddle over the whole surface and start dabbing the distress stains directly to the wet surface of the watercolor paper. So in this way, I'm not going to end up with any harsh marks or anything on the paper because the water will start immediately reacting with the stains. And I'm just going to continue pushing and diluting and mixing and blending those colors around a little bit with clean water and a flat brush. And when I need to, I'm just going to add a little bit more color in spots where I think I need it, and then continue blending things out until I'm happy. And I'm going to grab my heat tool and start heat setting everything. Now I've got quite a bit of water on here, and it was puddling around, and I didn't mind that, but it was kind of seemed like it was going to take a long time. So to speed things up, I kind of wicked some of that up with some clean paper towel there so I could keep heat setting and get those really fun puddles of color that dry around the edges there, and just creates really neat, interesting variations and veins of color in the watercolor there. Now I'm going to take a couple of hearts. These are borrowed from Cozy Christmas, and they just have the right shape that I was looking for to create these little accents. So I mounted 3 of them onto a block, and then I'm going to ink them up with some raspberry distress ink from a little ink cube here and stamp those a couple times. Now normally I don't stamp with the distress ink pads, but I did want a kind of blurry look, and because I know this is going to react with water, I can come in with my wet paint brush, and this time I just grabbed a smaller tipped brush so I could get in there and just kind of bleed that color out a little bit over the top and dilute the color and blur the lines a little bit, but I didn't want it to be overly blurry, and that's why I chose to go this route and see what I would get, and I was actually pretty happy with it. So I suppose there's other ways you could do this, but this is the way I did it and I liked it. So now I'm just going to heat set it again, make sure that all the little hearts are nice and dry because I have another step I'm going to do, and I just want to make sure that the surface is completely dry. So once I'm done heat setting that, I'm going to go ahead and grab the tape and pull it away from the surface, and I actually did take this and sandwich it between some parchment paper and sent it through my Mink to flatten it because it's still warped a little bit, probably from the heat tool. So I just went ahead and flattened it by sending it through my Mink, and that's one of the fun uses I have for my Mink tool besides foiling. Now I'm going to take the Love stamp and ink it up with the distress stain, or not the distress stain, but the distress ink pad. This is raspberry, and I just stamped it off because I wanted a really soft color here. I just wanted to barely see it because I'm actually going to take my Zig glue pen and go over the top of that, and it's going to look like I hand wrote this, even though I'm using the stamp as a guide. So I'm going over the top with my Zig two-way glue pen. I'm just using the chisel nib. This is a fairly thick brush script font, all handwritten, so I can get away with doing this right over the top of the stamp image. And then I'm going to let this glue dry completely, and it's going to be tacky once it's completely dry. And then what I can do next, and I just wanted to daub off some of the excess ink color that got on the tip of my glue pen so that when I put it away I'm not ending up smearing pink ink on other projects. So now I'm going to take a piece of the iCraft deco foil, and I just cut a piece of the gold to go right over the top, and it's actually going to stick to that, but before I actually peel it away, I'm going to sandwich it in between my cutting pads, and I'm going to send it through my Big Shot. Now, after I've cranked this through my Big Shot and I remove it from the cutting pads, the pressure of those pads going through the Big Shot, sandwiching that watercolor paper with the foil against that adhesive, it's actually going to really help transfer the foil to all that Zig two-way glue pen nicely. And so there you can see I've got a perfectly foiled image, and it's actually a stamp, but because of the style of that particular stamp, I was able to trace over it with the glue pen, and this worked. Now for something more fine detail, that probably wouldn't be the way to go, but it worked great for this particular style of image. So it's something you might try with larger, bolder, solid style images. So now I'm going to mount this. I trimmed it down 1/4 of an inch all the way around, and I'm going to mount it flush to a standard A2 card base made from Neenah Solar White. And then just to finish it off very quickly, this is one of my favorite tricks lately, is to take my Stickles glitter glue. I'm just going to clean the nozzle against the paper towel there and then make sure I don't have any air bubbles in it. And just go ahead and hold it at a 45-degree angle and just butt the very tip of that nozzle right against that watercolor panel. And that's just going to serve as a guide. And as long as I maintain steady pressure there on the bottle of Stickles glue, I'll get a nice fine bead of glitter glue all along the edges, and actually creates almost the effect of an additional layer, even though it's not. I just love this little trick, and doing that on the edges of my cards when I want a little bit of sparkle. Turned out super cute. I really love this trick with the two-way glue pen going over a stamped image like that, and I've got more details and still shots at the Classroom blog. All the supplies are available at ellenhutson.com, and thanks for watching.